Hi everybody, I'm Dave.
And I'm Brenda.
Today we're going to take on the subject of the bond. In this video, we're going to answer some of your questions about the bond. What is the bond? How is it calculated? How often do I pay it? How do I pay it? Is it tax deductible? Several questions like that. So, you ready to take this on?
I feel like I'm a free spirit. You're the numbers guy. I think you can take it.
All right. You can check it out at the end and give me your approval before we post it.
I'll definitely do that.
All right, let's get started. I'm going to try something new on this video. I'm going to use chapters. YouTube has a little function in there. I've never tried it, so hopefully it works, where you can actually click or hover over the video, and at the bottom you'll see chapter areas. Also, they'll be listed in the description of this video. You can go there and click on the chapters. If it all works well, we'll see. You should be able to jump ahead to areas that of interest for you in this video, so you don't have to watch the whole thing if you just have certain questions you want answered. So let's hope that it works. So what exactly is the bond? Well, I'll give you the definition. The definition is a bond is an instrument of indebtedness of the bond issuer to its holders. So what does that mean? Well, here in the villages, the infrastructure around and underneath your home is paid for with a bond. So you end up having a bond attached to your home that needs to be paid. So you may be thinking, like I did, coming from Virginia, we didn't have bonds on the homes. So what exactly am I paying for, and is this an extra expense? Well, look at it this way. In Virginia, when the developer built a subdivision, put in the streets, put in all those sewer lines and water lines and all of that infrastructure, that cost was then just added to your home. So I'll just use a rough example. A $100,000 home. I realize that's probably not realistic in many places these days, but say a $100,000 home was built in Virginia, and there's the infrastructure that the developer paid for now ties that to the home, so he may sell that for say $115,000. That's where he recoups the funds that were expended to build all that infrastructure, because nothing's free. The developer's going to get that money back. Well, here in Florida, the state law has a mechanism where a developer can issue bonds for that infrastructure. So the same example, a $100,000 home here in the villages. Not realistic, I understand, but $100,000, and they say they spent $15,000 on that infrastructure. The house could be sold for $100,000, and they attach a $15,000 bond to it. So you're still paying the $115,000 either way. It's just how it's set up. There can be argue pros and cons to that, but that's just how it's set up here in Florida, and the Villages takes advantage and uses that bond capability. So it's good to know when you're buying your home, is there a bond left to be paid? And we'll get deeper into that in this video and where you can find that information, but that's important to know. But that's how the bond works. Now, what exactly does that bond pay for? All right, in this segment we have a little helper. It's a little bit of a thunderstorm going on outside, and Molly does not enjoy thunderstorms, so she is stuck in my lap at this point. So if you hear some panting through the microphone, that's just Molly, and she'll be fine. So, what exactly does that bond money pay for? Well, it actually takes land that's in this condition, which is just cow pasture, which is what the majority of the Villages is built on. It was originally cow pasture, and it turns it into land like this. land that has all of the infrastructure and the roadways so that you can begin to put homes on that area. Now the process starts with a lot of moving of the soils and preparing that land underneath. They take most of the soils out, it appears. Now I don't claim to be an expert on this, but I'm just going from what I've seen. Over about a year or so, they'll remove soils, bring them back in, we'll assort it into different types. You'll have stockpiles of clay, stockpiles of sand, stockpiles of topsoils and rocks. And then, like I said, they bring it all back in using these huge rock trucks. And they'll layer it in different types of layers. I imagine, from what I'm hearing, is to manage some of the runoff and control some of the rain waters and where the waters soak in. You don't want to just have everything as sand around here. So that process takes quite a while. And you can kind of see here in this picture some of the several layers where you have the red clays and the sands and the nice rich brown dirts. And they've started doing some digging in this area where I filmed, where they're putting in some of that underground infrastructure, because that's the next step. Once all this land has kind of been leveled and has the soil layers, they start digging it back up again to start putting in the piping and the infrastructure that goes underneath. As you can imagine, there's a lot of infrastructure under the ground. You have water lines, and there's two types of water lines. We have the potable water and sprinkler water. They actually have a separate system for that everybody runs off of, at least in these southern areas. There's gas lines, storm sewer lines, sanitary sewer lines, cable television lines. There's just so much that has to go under the ground. And electrical lines, don't want to leave that out, one of the most important ones. So they'll dig and lay all those things in the ground through an intricate pattern as they've pre-planned how that village is going to line up. Then once all that's in the ground, you still have water retention ponds. All of our storm water goes to water retention ponds that eventually feed the sprinkler systems around here. And then after all the ponds, you still have to shape each of the lots so that you have proper drainage, so that you have your house drains away and doesn't drain into your neighbor's house, goes into the swales between the homes and eventually towards the gutters and areas that will collect the water to go to the storm retention ponds. Then you still need the roads. The roadways need to be put in that will get you all around throughout that village. Then, once all that is done, you have land that is ready to build on. This actually is land at the hammock at Finney I had filmed, and they've started doing construction there. But that's where all of your funds go. You approve, Molly? Alrighty, let's see you in the next section. So, does everyone pay the same amount for the bond? Well, it's yes and no. There's never a simple answer, is there? Well, there's a formula that calculates how much the bond is for each home. Now, the homes that are side by side on the same street, yes, you'll probably be paying the same amount of bond as your neighbors are. But a few streets over, are you paying the same amount as them? Maybe not. So how do they even come up with this number? Well, let me show you here on Google Earth and try and give you a quick overview of how they do it. We're looking at Linden Isle. It's just a simple area that's kind of surrounded by retention ponds. So this is a good area for me to try and make my point. In this area, there are what we call 3 units. There are sections that they decide that a bond is tied to. There's a unit structure that each unit has a set amount of bond. Well, that was calculated based on, say, this whole area here. When it was built, the infrastructure cost a certain amount of money. But when they take that number, they'll divide by the number of accessible acres. So the land lots that can be built on, they'll figure out the total number of acres of all of that property on Linden Isle, and they figured out what that amount is, and they figured out a price per acre. Now, your individual lot is not assessed based on your acre size. That's what's interesting. So there's a price per acre. Then they break areas into units. On Linden Isle, there are 3 units. All of the designer homes, these are the ones kind of on the outside of this area. I'll zoom in. This right here, you can see the walls. That's a set of villas. And also right here is a set of villas. Each of the sets of villas have their own unit. So they're going to have a bond rate. And then, so that's the 2 villas. Everything outside of those 2 villas, so that's these designer homes going around the outer edge and a street through here, those are their own unit. Now, as you can imagine, villas are put in a little bit tighter. That's sort of the draw for that. Some people like to have those smaller areas with low maintenance. So the villas, there's a lot more houses per acre. So the acre cost in the villa, and you divide that by the number of villas in there, you divide it evenly, makes for a lower bond because it's tighter compact in there. So the 2 sets of villas are lower bonds than the more spread out homes of the designer homes that are in the next unit. That unit will have a higher bond because there's more acreage and fewer homes to divide the cost among. I'll give you specifics on these right here. Let me pull up real quick. These are the amortization tables. We'll talk about that in the next section where you can look these up for a specific home you may be looking at. But this is an amortization table which tells us what the bond is. Let me start on this one here. This is, I happen to know, Unit 33. That is the unit that is on Linden Isle. It's the designer homes around the outside there. That's Unit 33. Their bond is $29,850. Now for Preston Villas are also on Linden Isle. That is the set of villas down the northern part of the island. Now those villas, the bond is $20,773. Almost $10,000 less was that? Yes, about $10,000 less. And that's typical of villas, that bond is a little bit lower, and it's again because per acre there's a lot more houses put in per acre. And then Rhett Villas, which is the one on the southern part of Linden Isle, they're even tighter because they're a little bit smaller villas, and the bond there is $15,222. It's almost half of what it is for the homes. So that's how it's calculated. Now, you probably want to know, how do I find out what the bond is on a specific house that I'm looking at? So how do you find the bond on a specific home that you may be looking at? Well, what I do is just use the Villages app on my phone. What you need to get is the unit number for that home. Remember, the unit we talked about in a previous section has to do with an area. The unit is not the specific house. There's several houses in a unit. You can find that if it's a new home on the Villages app. When you search through the new homes, if you pull up that home, give me one moment here. If you click on one of those, it's going to have what they call a VNH number. A Village New Home Number is what that stands for. It's, for example, I grabbed one here. It was 54V029. That first number is the unit number. So this case for the 54V029, the 54 is the unit. Pre-owned homes are a little bit different. It doesn't show right there on its village number. So what you have to do is, let me find a pre-owned home. And on a pre-owned home, I can, one second, just clicked on one. When I open that up, it's not going to have a V&H number because it's not a village new home, so it's not listing that lot. So there's a button there though that says for the flyer. So if you click on it and get the flyer, on that flyer, down at the bottom of it, it's going to be written on there somewhere. It's what they call the legal description of the lot. So this one was lot 117, unit 205. So the unit number was 205. If you're using something that is not sold by the villages, say through Zillow or an outside agent, I don't know where you get that legal description, but they probably have it. It's probably, if you go through their website, it's how the property is recorded legally. So that description is probably out there. I just haven't experienced that myself. But you need to get that unit number. With the unit number, then we can go on to the village's Village Community Development District website. It's a mouthful. What I do is I go just search it on Google because I can never remember the website. So I use VCDD, Villages Community Development District, and it'll come up with the website, districtgov.org. That's the official website. I'll take that website, I'll put it down in the comments so you'll be able to go directly to this. On that website, the sixth option there on the left is the residential bond assessment information. Just click on that, and there's a second option on that next page is bond amortization schedules. So I'll click on it. Now, once you have a unit number, then let's see, that last one I was looking at, what was that unit number? Unit was 205. So unit 205. Now if I know what county it was in, I could click on the county. I don't specifically know, but I'll just guess. Sumter has the majority of the villages. If not, you can just kind of check with all three. They're really quick. And you can see they just list the unit numbers. So I'm looking for unit 205. 205 is right here. So unit 205, this is the amortization schedule for the bond for that home. This is a pre-owned home in the middle of the villages, and it was a $22,000 bond initially that was put out in 2012. So that bond would be paid over 30 years unless you pay it all off at once. Now that $22,000 bond today, remaining, it looks like there's about $19,000 remaining on that bond, assuming that homeowner didn't pay it off. So that's how you find the amortization schedule. It's good information on there. It's going to give you the amount of the total bond. It's going to tell you what the administrative fees are. There are those, and you can get interest rates and things off of this sheet. So let's go to, I'm going to go to my own home. Let's see. All right, it was in unit 19. Here is the amortization schedule for our home. Our bond was $30,059. Administrative fee, $125, and the interest rate was 4.33%. Now you can just have to decide, do you want to, you can pay that all at once, or you can pay it over 30 years. And we'll discuss that in another section, what the pros and cons of that may be. Let's see, once you have this, I'm trying to think, how do you pay this? Now when you pay the bond, it comes in your property tax bill once a year in November. And that amount that you will pay is right here. If you're paying annually, it'll show the specific year. So in 2021, the amount will be $1,900.17. I already know that exact amount is what would be billed on the property tax. I could jump ahead and I can already say in 2031, the exact amount that will be on that bill for property tax would be $1,899.68. That number doesn't change. The amortization schedule is set up, and that's the amount that will show up once a year on the property tax bill. If you have a mortgage and you're using you have escrow, then it's just like your property tax. It comes on that same bill and it'll go through your escrow. Now keep in mind there's two choices in how you pay the bond. You either pay it all in one lump sum or you pay the annual payments. You can't pay extra. It's not like on a mortgage that you can say I want to pay extra towards it. Like ours would be $1,900 a year. I can't pay $2,500 to try and pay it down. It's you pay the $1,900, that exact amount, or you pay off the remainder of the bond. You don't get a choice in to be able to pay extra. So keep that in mind. It doesn't mean that you have to pay it all off when you first buy your home. You may decide that you want to do 1 or 2 years of paying those payments. And we'll talk about what some of the advantage of maybe of not paying it initially if you're not going to be in your home for long. So you can do that for a few years and then you may change your mind. It's like, let's go ahead and pay this off, and you'll just pay off the remaining amount. And you'll still save the remaining interest and administrative fees that would be coming for years down the line. Now, should I pay off the bond or not? Well, first of all, let me state, I am not a financial advisor. I'm just going to give you some of the discussion points I've heard people talk about on when they try and make that decision. Is it a good idea to pay it off or not pay it off at the beginning? So let's look again at the example I pulled up earlier of a bond that's actually over in the McClure area. You can see that a $30,059 initial bond, when you're paying over 30 years with an administrative fee of about $125 a year, the interest rate on this bond was at 4.33%. By the time it's all said and done, if you look down here at a total, over 30 years, you're going to pay actually $57,000 for that bond. So you may think, well, I should just pay that all up front if I'm able to do that. That may be well and good. Here's a thought that a lot of people talk about. People do move around a lot in the villages. The average person goes through 3 different homes here in the villages. If that's not you, if you're going to live somewhere for an extended period, then that is it may be worthwhile to go ahead and pay that bond off, because you're saving those interest and fees, administrative fees, and getting that all paid off. So you just pay $30,059 at the beginning and it's over with. Now, if you're only planning on being in the house for maybe 1 to 2 years, you pay that off, realistically, if you list your home for sale, you're not going to be able to add that $30,000 to the value of your home to sell it. People are looking around for a house that says bonds paid off. They're looking for that because they want the savings that the bond's already paid off. Well, if the bond, if they want that savings, if you add $30,000, you're going to price yourself out of the market. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just saying these are the points that I've heard people make. So if you're going to be there just for a couple of years, maybe you're better off just paying that $1,900 a year for a couple of years. So you spent $3,000, $4,000, and then when you sell your home, it doesn't have the bond paid, but you're still listing at a reasonable price, and you're probably going to come out ahead. Where that cutoff is to where it's profitable, I guess you were trying to say, to pay off the bond and sell, is it 5 years, is it 10 years? I don't know. That's just something to consider. A lot of people don't like having that debt over the head. I understand that. They want to pay it off right at the beginning. So that's an individual choice. Consult with your financial advisor. Another point, you cannot pay the bond down. So you have to pay it all or nothing. So when you buy this home and it's $30,059, you decide you're going to pay the payments, you can do that for several years, but you can't say instead of the $1,900, I want to pay $2,500 a year. They don't take it that way. It's not like on a mortgage that you can pay extra. It's all or nothing. So 3 or 4 years from now, you decide you want to pay it off, then you're going to pay off the remainder all at once. But you can't add extra payments each year. It's that standard payment, $1,900 for this one, until you decide to pay it off, and then you pay the remaining amount. Now, if you do decide to pay off the bond from a home, say you purchase a home, what's going to happen if you purchase a home that someone else had already, a pre-owned home, and then you have to take over that bond. So let's say they've been there for 5 years and they've been just doing the payments on the bond. Well, you have the remaining 25 years automatically transfers to the new owner, and you'll just have to do the remainder of the bond. And if you're curious what amount is left, you can go to these amortization tables, and again, it shows right here the year that you're in. So if this house is sold in 2027, you were to purchase this, you can see that's the balance that you would have to pay off. Now you have to contact the district and get exact amount, because it's going to vary from that just by the amount of interest that may be building depending on the time of the year you're paying it. But it's going to be very close to that as your payoff amount. So again, if you sell your home and you've been doing payments for the bond, that's just going to transfer to the new owner. When you sell your home, that bond does not stay with you. You don't have to pay that, and the new owner is automatically going to have to pick up that bond. It's tied to the address and the owner of the home. Now, even if you choose to pay off your bond, or when your bond is finally paid off, there still is one other fee to be aware of. That is the bond maintenance fee. That never goes away. Now remember, the bond has paid for all of this new infrastructure to be put in, all your water lines and drainage, sewer drainage, and the streets that are around your home. All of that is built initially for that cost, but it has to be maintained. So each year there is an assessment that will show up also on your annual property tax bill. That will be an ongoing amount, and it'll fluctuate a little bit depending on what repairs need to be done. But that's where they're going to get the funds in order to maintain that infrastructure so it doesn't fall apart. In our example, our bond maintenance is $703. That was for the year. So our bond amount was $1,900 a year, but the bond maintenance on top of that was $703. We can make the bond part go away by paying it off, but the bond maintenance is going to be an annual that is going to continue. And that's how we maintain our infrastructure here, is through that bond maintenance fee that's paid once a year on your property tax bill. Now, the last point I'd like to make is the bond tax deductible? First of all, remember, I am not a financial analyst. I am not a tax expert. I can only tell you what I keep hearing and what I'm reading, but everywhere I look, there's this thing called non-ad valorem taxes or fees. Non-ad valorem has to do with whether it's associated directly with the value of your home. When I get my property tax bill, it actually has the bond listed very specifically as a non-ad valorem tax or fee. And everywhere I've seen, non-ad valorems are not tax deductible, so you can't put that on your taxes as like you can property tax. Property tax is almost always tax deductible. So, but check with your tax professional. I could be wrong, but everywhere I'm looking, that's what I'm finding, is that non-ad valorem, which is what the bond is, cannot be deducted off your taxes. So a lot of people ask that question. That's my 2 cents on it. Again, ask a tax professional. Don't just take my advice on that. I hope that video on the bond and how it works here in the Villages was helpful. Do you approve of the video before we post it?
Absolutely. I think you did a good job of explaining it.
All right, well, awesome. We'll go ahead and get this video up to you. And if you would, do us a favor. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to our channel. And if you would, if you ring the bell, it'll notify you the next time we explore the Villages.